Hey guys, before I get started on this episode, just wanted to let you know that the Golden State with Mates Patreon is now 50% off to new members through the end of January. At the end of the month, I'll also be giving Best Mate members the chance to win this copy of Stephen Curry's book, Shot Ready. So check that out. And for more Warriors content, I'll leave a link in the description. Coming up on this episode, De'Anthony Melton's extraordinary impact on the Golden State Warriors right now and how it may impact the franchise's thinking when it comes to the trade market before next month's deadline. Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates podcast. The Warriors 11-4 now in their past 15 games, having recorded a 136-116 victory over the Charlotte Hornets on Saturday night at Chase Center. De'Anthony Melton has obviously been a huge part of this recent turnaround for the Warriors. A little bit of an easier schedule, a little bit of expectation, I suppose, that the Warriors would win a heap of these games on their current homestand against lesser opposition. But the way he's playing right now is very, very notable, not just in the absolute current and short term of things, but also the long term as well. And I think that's worthy of a discussion. I brought it up with Stevie on the podcast we did earlier in the week, US time, and mentioned to him about Melton's impact and the way in which it affects Mike Dunleavy and the front office's thinking leading into the deadline. Do you have to consider, this is the question I want to open up to all of you listening in, particularly if you're on YouTube, let us know in the comments. Do you have to consider De'Anthony Melton and his expected free agency again this upcoming offseason, 2026, when you are factoring in, do you have to factor in that when it comes to potential trades before the deadline? Because a guy like Michael Porter Jr., who is set to make $40.3 million next season, that's very, very likely to take you out of any chance of re-signing De'Anthony Melton. As opposed to a guy like Trey Murphy III. This is why the Warriors might be willing to give up multiple first-round picks for Trey Murphy, but not MPJ, because Trey makes a little bit less, gives you just a little bit more flexibility. He's making $27 million next season. Obviously, got a couple of years beyond that as well. But from an average salary standpoint, it's $13 million less. Is that something that entices you to obviously give up multiple first-round picks for a guy like that, who also will give you a little bit more flexibility, assuming you've got Steph, Jimmy, Trey, Dre, those four, then you've got a little bit of wiggle room with what you do underneath that. Because De'Anthony Melton right now, you cannot understate his impact on this team. 24 points yesterday, breaking his season high and scoring for the third time in the last 6 games. I think he's got 19 points or more now in 4 of the last 6 games. Again, the Warriors 11-4 over this stretch. And during this period, De'Anthony Melton is a plus 148. I'd put it out on Twitter. He's a plus 148 in his 281 minutes on the floor. Pods is second at plus 88. There is a bigger gap between Melton at number 1 and Pods at number 2 than there is Pods at number 2 and Horford, who's a plus 30 at number 7, ranked 7th in the last 15 games. This guy is incredible. I think he might be, outside of players on rookie contracts, one of the most valuable guys in the league. Now, we are still talking about a pretty short-term sample size, I suppose, since he's come back from injury. Like, he only came back from injury 6 weeks ago. He started off shooting the ball pretty poorly, which is to be expected when he's had so much time off. The guy played 44 games in the previous 2 seasons. So we shouldn't be surprised. But even then, he was making an impact. Now the shooting's coming around. And it's not just the shooting. And I think I and some others might have to give Melt an apology for the way we might have pigeonholed him into being a 3-and-D guard, when in reality, he's a good three-point shooter. He's not a great three-point shooter. He's a good three-point shooter. He's a 36, 37% career three-point shooter, which is probably what he's going to end up with the Warriors this season. Obviously started off horrifically badly, being hot as of late. He's probably going to end up there. He's a good three-point shooter, not a great one. He's can be a very good on-ball defender. And from the moment he returned, I was like, this guy looks incredible athletically for a guy coming off an ACL injury. And I still go back to his first game against the 76ers. That was obviously a heartbreaker. And we all remember the VJ Edgecombe tip layup. But I'll still remember the way Melton forced that shot from Tyrese Maxey's potential game winner and forced him into an incredibly tough shot that he missed so badly that Edgecombe was right there for the tip layup to win Philly the game. He looked incredible defensively from the very start. But we always knew him as this 3-and-D guy. I have been, quite frankly, shocked at how good he has been off the dribble and giving the Warriors another element of playmaking and rim pressure that they otherwise lack beyond like Steph and Jimmy. He can get to the hole and he can finish. Now, there are times where it looks a bit awkward and sometimes he doesn't finish, but man, like even just getting to the rim in the first place is such a positive for this team that otherwise doesn't generally do it overly well beyond a couple of players. And even getting to the rim, well, that obviously collapses defenses and all of a sudden ball swing, corner wing, blah, 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 and you get an open three out of it. Okay. And the Warriors are finally capitalizing after a pretty rough stretch to open the season. Like, I think up until the last few games, they ranked middle of the pack, like 15th in 3-point percentage, which for a team that relies on the three ball as much as the Warriors, I think they still rank first or second in 3-point attempts. For a team that relies that heavily on the three ball to be like league average in percentage isn't great. Now they're getting it up. I think they're about 11th or something like that now. And part of it is that their shooting is coming around. They were due a better period of shooting the ball. But the other part is like guys like Melton and him specifically has added a whole new wrinkle to this team in terms of being able to take a defender off the dribble, get by him, get to the rim. And I know like you're playing Charlotte yesterday. They're the 24th ranked defense in the league. They're loading up on Steph. So you're already at an advantage if you're any other Warrior player because they are literally like Steph's going down the tunnel and Colin Sexton's following. Like they are that keyed in on Steph Curry. That you're already at an advantage. But even still, Melton's ability to just take his guy off the dribble or come off a screen and get to the rim, like it's sensational. And again, this dude's making $3.1 million this season. $3.1 million. This is one of the biggest steals of free agency. This is one of the best value contracts in the entire league outside of rookie contracts. This is one of the best bench guards in the entire league, full stop. This is one of the best six men in the entire league, full stop. Probably like would be a legitimate 6 man of the year contender if he obviously wasn't coming off the knee injury at the start of the season and missing all those games, which is exactly why also the Warriors were able to get him on a 2-year, $6.2 million contract or whatever it was, and 6.8, whatever it was. This guy is helping to save the Warriors season to some degree. He's also only 27 years old. So when I asked Steve the other day, I was like, do you have to consider like his long-term future as part of decisions you make right now? Stevie kind of blew it off. And there is a fair enough, there is a strong argument, like a very strong argument to be made that whatever I'm saying here, just disregard it all because at the end of the day, it comes down to number 30. Comes down to Steph and Jimmy and Draymond and Steve. And you are trying to win a 5th championship this season. And that nothing else beyond that really matters. So if there is a deal lined up before Feb 5 that makes your team 10 to 15% better, like makes your team reasonably better, then you should do it no matter the cost come the end of the season. because you owe it to Steph and you owe it to Jimmy. So there's a strong argument to be made about that you just kick the can down the road. Okay. You shouldn't be thinking necessarily too much about the 2026 off season when you're still trying to be a strong playoff threat this season, and that you should, whatever you can do to improve the team by as much as you can, you should do before the deadline. There's an argument for that. However, I'd also argue that this is a 2-year timeline. Steph, Jimmy, Draymond are still contracted for next season. Jimmy, Draymond picks up the player option. So you kind of, I think you need to. The Warriors, we know they have an eye to the future. Okay, otherwise they would have given up all their picks already. They probably have too much of an eye on the future. We've seen what's happened throughout the Kuminga saga. We know they're protective of their first-round draft picks, particularly after Steph retires, particularly once he passes 40 years old. Okay, so we understand that. And that's why I think when all of us, like myself included, are getting really anxious or frustrated about what this team might do in terms of a Kuminga trade, I'd say, just send the picks for Trey Murphy. Just send 2 picks for Michael Porter Jr. Okay, all this stuff. I think we've got to understand that the future thinking does come into it. And we can argue that the future picks aspect of it shouldn't necessarily come into it. Well, obviously it comes into it, but if you can make the upgrade, you make the upgrade. The DeAnthony Melton piece of this, I think, is a little bit more important than what people give it credit for, because he's also, this is an imminent question the Warriors are going to face this offseason. It's not about draft picks in 5 years' time. It's an imminent question that is still going to impact Steph Curry next season and Jimmy Butler and the rest of the Warrior roster. So I do think it's worth forward thinking and having the conversation of, this guy has a $3.7 million player option for next season. He ain't picking it up. He ain't picking that one up. I'll tell you that much. This guy, the way he's playing right now, is probably worth $20 million a season. Then you've got Pods, who's extension eligible as well. You've got guys like Quentin Post, Guy Santos going to be restricted free agents. So the Warriors are going to have a lot of work to do in free agency. Melton should be numero uno right now the way he's playing. And I just think it's worthy of saying, okay, we have Michael Porter Jr. here. He's available. Do we pull the trigger on that? And I just think the Warriors would say to themselves, if we're to make a Michael Porter Jr. trade, we have to include DeAnthony Melton as part of the outgoing cost. So it's Kuminga, it's Hill, it's Moody, and it's Melton. Okay, we keep him for the rest of the season, but there's just no way we'd retain him in free agency. And there are a lot of fans out there who would say, I don't care. It gives us, we would keep him for the rest of the season. It gives us a strong chance of being some kind of playoff threat, which again is fine. If that's your opinion, that's fine. Let me know. But at the same time, you do have to consider that. How can the Warriors go about finding a way to re-sign this guy? And the best way they can go about it, if you want DeAnthony Melton on this team beyond the deadline, beyond this season, then you better prepare yourself for a very underwhelming Jonathan Kuminga trade return. Because right now, you can't really have both. It's going to be the Warriors would have to do a lot of kind of bookwork and a lot of different moves to find themselves a way in which they could, let's say, trade for Michael Porter Jr. or even trade at 25 million. Even then, it's going to be difficult to keep a guy like DeAnthony Melton based on what he's doing right now and what his value looks like from an on-court perspective. So you have to consider it. And if you want Melton beyond this season, if you see him as the perfect backcourt complement for Steph Curry, closing level player and not just a closing lineup player, but a closing lineup player on a championship level team. Now, the Warriors might not be a championship level team, but could DeAnthony Melton be the fourth or fifth starter for any legitimate strong playoff team? Yeah, probably. And so if you want to keep him long term, which again, the guy's only 27 years old, you better be prepared for an underwhelming Jonathan Kuminga trade return, because the best way the Warriors can look to re-sign Melton in free agency is by taking on expiring contracts. And when Shams and Anthony Slater report last week that the Warriors are looking to take back expiring contracts in a Kuminga deal, I think a lot of us, myself included, looked at it and were really frustrated. Like, why are we prioritizing optionality and flexibility? Like, we're trying to become the best possible team for Steph for the remainder of this season. Okay, who cares about expiring contracts? Because when you look at it, generally the more valuable players aren't on expiring contracts, right? Generally, the best players in the league these days, they don't get to free agency because they sign extensions beforehand. So if you look at the guys making around the same money as between, let's say, $10 and $25 million, I just picked a group of names here. Okay, a bunch of names in this group between $12 and $25 million who are on expiring contracts. John Collins, Nikola Vucevic, Colin Sexton, Yusuf Nurkic, Rui Hachimura, Kevin Huerter, Kobe White, Robert Williams III. Any of those dudes doing it for you? Any of those dudes making the Warriors significantly better over the second half of the season going into the playoffs? There'd be some helpful guys there. I think the Lakers' interest in JK is interesting because I'm not sure JK is an upgrade on Rui necessarily. So I'm not sure. I've seen fans, literally Laker fans and others on social media proposing Rui and Dalton connects to Kuminga, and I'm like, huh? Maybe I just don't watch the Lakers and Rui close enough. Maybe the Laker fans just don't follow the Warriors and JK close enough. But in what world is Jonathan Kuminga an upgrade from Rui Hachimura? That was bizarre to me. So would Rui be helpful for 20 minutes in a Warrior rotation? Maybe. Bigger body forward, Warriors could do with that. John Collins is probably about the same. And then everyone else, like Kobe White, I think the Warriors have one of the best bench guard duos in the league right now with Pods and Melton. You don't need to add Kobe White, I don't think. Robert Williams, sure. What else was part of the deal? Because he's making nearly $10 million less than Kuminga. Again, I think with his lack of spacing, he'd be playing, and he's obviously got injury concerns, he'd be playing 15 minutes a game, I would say, in this rotation. Maybe lessen the burden on Draymond a little bit. Few less small ball minutes for Draymond at the 5, that could help. But none of these guys are going to be a huge difference maker. And the kind of huge difference maker we still believe, even though they're 11-4 in their last 15 games, I think most of us would still say, hey, this is a team that needs a major uptick in talent, a major roster upgrade to be able to have at least a puncher's chance against the likes of the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Denver Nuggets. Okay, none of these guys doing it for you. So what's the point there? Why are we chasing expiring contracts? Well, the reason is because it gives you the ability to say, all right, we're taking on a guy for the rest of the season. He might help us a little bit, but then this gives us the ability to re-sign DeAnthony Melton in free agency. And we think that's more worthwhile. Doing that and keeping our picks and keeping just general flexibility is more worthwhile than paying overs for Trey Murphy III or overs for Michael Porter Jr., which I think you would have to do to be able to get one of those players, because I think Brooklyn are in a situation, we've got to remember, they don't own their first round pick next season, so they kind of want to be competitive next season. Again, I don't think they're necessarily, I don't get the sense they want to just dump Michael Porter Jr. I think they're going to be willing, he's resting again today. I think they're probably going to be willing to have a Larry Markkinen situation where it's all right, you're kind of too good for us. We don't want to be this good. You're making us too competitive. You had a game-winning layup against the Bulls the other day. So we're just going to sit you a bunch. Like, we're just going to sit you a heap of games. You're not going to play both sides of back-to-back. And we're going to try and realise our tanking ambitions, but also keep you on the roster because we want to be competitive next season moving forward. Something like that. So I could see that unless, again, they get overs for him. And then the same can be said for Trey Murphy, is that I think the Pelicans, I mean, they're such a dumpster fire that you just don't know what they're going to do, which is kind of the reason. Like, I just wouldn't trade Trey Murphy the third whatsoever. I was listening to the Light Years podcast before this. One of the boys was saying that, like, they should sell high on Trey because he's not going to be part of their next, like, playoff championship core because Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears are only 3 years away. And I was kind of like, Trey's 25. He's still going to be in his prime in 3 years' time when he's 28. So I actually think the Pelicans can afford to just keep Trey, okay, and not necessarily just move him. But it's also the Pelicans. You just don't know what they're going to... Like, I wouldn't trade Trey Murphy the third, but it's the Pels. Like, that's kind of why I just have this, like, weird hope and optimism that the Warriors could land Trey Murphy because, like, it's the Pelicans. They could just do something dumb, stupid, right? Which they've proven to do in the past and recently. So I just think it would take overs for that. And maybe the Warriors get to a point where it's like, okay, we're not going to be willing to do that. And that's going to frustrate a lot of fans. It's going to frustrate a lot of fans. But maybe fans also, on the back end of that, get quite pleased when D'Anthony Melton signs a 4-year, $60 million contract in free agency or something. The Warriors have enough wiggle room to, I don't know, open up the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, something like that, right? And get to keep D'Anthony Melton. So, I don't know. I just think I'm still of the, like, I think you've got to push as far. I think you have to have one eye on D'Anthony Melton and free agency and what's coming up in the offseason. But I'm still trying to push for a big trade, right? Because, again, I think the Warriors owe it to Steph to make use of every single season, okay? And I think the Warriors have proven throughout this stretch. Now, again, easier schedule, homestand, all this stuff. But they're not far away, okay? They're not that far away, I don't think. If they just got one more big piece, then am I putting them on the same tier as OKC and Denver? No, not necessarily. But am I giving them a shot in a 7-game series against those guys when right now I don't think they would? Yeah, I would. I'd give them a shot. And that's all Steph needs sometimes, right? They had a shot of winning that Timberwolves series last season before Steph went down. Okay, they could have been in the Western Conference Finals last season. And to me, the West, beyond the Thunder and the Nuggets, is still pretty open. Okay? There's a clear top 2 there to me. And then, could we see the Warriors in the Western Conference semifinals again? Yeah, I think you could. And then, if you're coming up against one of those 2 teams, who knows how the playoff fixture pans out. But if you just get, like, Trey Murphy on this team, I tell you, like, the Thunder and the Nuggets, they're nervous. They ain't walking in thinking it's going to be a cakewalk and that it's going to be a sweep or a gentleman's sweep or anything like that. Okay, you're preparing them for a pretty tough series. If you got Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Trey Murphy, Draymond, Melton, Horford, that's a good top 6, right? Pods, Moody, 7, 8. This is exactly why Trey Murphy's the dream target because, again, he makes $25 million this season. It wouldn't require... It might not necessarily require Pods or Moody, who are playing really well right now. Now, I'm not saying this recent good stretch from those guys takes them completely out of trade talks. But, like, those guys are valuable enough players. They can be 7th, 8th men on a good, strong playoff team, which is probably what the Warriors want, right? Can we upgrade the Moody spot right now to Trey Murphy? Can we get a consensus top 4, Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, Trey, and then we've got Melton and Horford. That's 5, 6. We've got Moody and Pods. That's 7, 8. We've got Post. That's 9. GP2 if we need him. 10. You trade for Trey Murphy and keep Buddy Hield around for the vibes, for goodness sake. Buddy actually played well yesterday, credit to him. So I'm still looking at I still want a big trade, okay? But I also understand and I also respect that you should have one eye on the offseason. And I also wouldn't be shocked if we get to the deadline and it's like the Warriors have traded Jonathan Kuminga to the Los Angeles Lakers for Rui Hachimura and Dalton Connect. Or the Warriors have traded Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield to the Chicago Bulls for Nikola Vucevic and Ayo Dosunmu. like that's or the Warriors have traded Jonathan Kuminga and, well, no, that's not going to work. I was going to say the Blazers for Jeremy Grant, but Jeremy Grant's still got years left on his deal. The Warriors aren't going to take, unless it's a very good player, unless it's MPJ or Trey, I just don't think the Warriors are going to take on money beyond this season. Okay. Because again, flat out, it will limit their ability to re-sign Melton. So, I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think. How much stock should we put in to De'Anthony Melton's future with this team beyond this season? Now, touch wood, everything I've said remains relevant, and that De'Anthony Melton continues to play incredible basketball, because this is a good problem to have. You'd prefer this than, the dude got injured again and he's going to pick up that player option and we don't even know if he's going to play next season. Like that kind of worst case scenario. So this is a good problem to have to some degree, but it's also going to create a lot of decision making for the Warriors to sift through as they explore different Kuminga deals before the deadline. I'm going to finish it up there. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at Pop252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Golden State with Mates on TikTok, Instagram, and the Patreon as well. If you haven't checked that out already, I'll leave a link in the description. Thank you very much again, guys. Warriors in action again tomorrow against the Miami Heat. Should be an interesting one. Hopefully Jimmy's back. I went this whole episode, I didn't even talk about the fact Jimmy Butler missed yesterday's game. A bit of a strange, very, very late absence due to personal reasons. Hopefully everything's all right with Jimmy and hopefully he returns against his former team. It's going to be a huge matchup.